Welcome to the world of sub $100 projectors, where the numbers on the product pages are made up and the prices don't matter. Today on the hookup, I bought the 10 best-selling projectors on Amazon under $100, and I'm going to figure out which one is the best, show you how to sift through their deceptive marketing techniques, and hopefully help you decide if a cheap projector will work for what you need. This video was not in my plans. I went on Amazon to get a cheap projector to use with my Halloween decorations, but when I saw all the crazy claims being made by these projector listings, I knew what had to be done. Even if you don't buy one of the projectors in this video, after watching this, you'll hopefully feel a lot more equipped to dodge all the inflated numbers and focus on the things that might actually get you a better performing projector. Thank you so much to Govee for sponsoring this video. Their new Immersion TV Kit takes their ambient TV backlight one step further by adding 2 RGBW light bars to the experience. The Govee Kit comes with everything you need for a clean and easy install, so there's no extra expenses. Using the ColorSense camera, the Immersion Kit captures the image from your TV or projector and expands it onto the surrounding wall for, you guessed it, an immersive experience. The Govee Immersion Kit can also be controlled by Google Home and Amazon Echo devices, so when you're not watching TV, you can easily select your favorite multicolor effect. Check out the Govee Immersion TV Kit using the link down in the description. Other than the criteria of being under $100, I'm not going to talk about each projector's individual price very much because between price cuts, percentage-based discounts, and Amazon coupons, prices fluctuate by as much as 40% every couple of days. And some of the projectors that I paid the most for are now the cheapest and vice versa. The thing that all these projectors have in common is their projection technology. There are 3 main types of projectors. Incandescent bulb projectors are moderately priced and have high brightness with the trade-off of needing to replace your bulb every couple thousand hours. Laser projectors are an expensive, relatively new technology that use different colored lasers to project a bright image with an extremely long lifespan. And then all the cheap projectors like the ones that we're going to talk about today are LED projectors, which use an LED light source projected through a transparent LCD screen, giving you a cost-effective, long lifespan projector with the trade-off of significantly lower brightness. LED projectors are typically not a replacement for a TV, but they can be fun for the occasional outdoor movie or for less traditional applications like Halloween projection decorations. Even though we'll spend a little bit of time later on talking about their extra features, to me the 2 most important criteria of a projector in this price range are picture quality and brightness. It would be really nice if you could just go to the Amazon listings, look through, and buy the one with the highest brightness and resolution. But the listings for these projectors are incredibly deceptive. For instance, this listing claims 7,500 lumens of brightness, while my $2,000 Epson LS300 laser projector has less than half that at 3,600. But when you display their images side by side, it looks like this. On the left is my 3600 ANSI lumen LS300, then on the right is the so-called 7,500 lumen LED projector. So why doesn't Amazon take down these clearly deceptive listings? Well, it's because they're not technically lying. The normal way to measure brightness of a projector is at the screen using a specific light meter, and that's called ANSI brightness. However, these projectors are instead listing the maximum brightness of their LED light source. And according to BenQ, a good approximation to convert light source brightness into ANSI brightness is to multiply by 0.04, which means that a 7,500 lumen light source is around 300 ANSI lumens. The other thing that these projectors are less than truthful about is their resolution. Right in the title, this projector says 1080p projector, so that means it's full HD, right? Wrong. By saying it's a 1080p projector, they only mean that these projectors can play a 1080p video source. But most of their screens have a native resolution of 720p, and if you aren't paying attention, you may get stuck with a resolution way lower than that. Even if you find the native resolution listed, it might not even be correct. Like this one says that it has a 480p native resolution, which should be 852 by 480. But instead, when you dig deeper, you'll find out that it's actually 480 by 272, which is half of 480p. And this one might be the worst one, where it says right in the title that it is a native 1080p projector. But if you look deep in the description, you'll see that it's actually 1280 by 800, which is much closer to 720p than it is 1080p. Basically, what I'm saying is that these listings are at best misleading and at worst a total lie. Unfortunately, you also can't trust the reviews for these things, since some of these projectors include a small slip of paper inside their packaging, offering an Amazon gift card or extra prizes in exchange for a positive review. So since you can't trust the listings and you can't trust the reviews, hopefully you can trust this random guy on YouTube. I bought all these projectors with my own money and I haven't had any contact with their manufacturers, but I do make money through the Amazon affiliate program. So if this video helps you decide which projector to buy, I'd appreciate if you could use the links down in the description, which allows me to earn a small portion of the sale at no cost to you. So let's get started. For testing purposes, I used my ambient light rejecting projector screen from VividStorm, which is designed specifically for standard non-short throw projectors. I know most people will probably be projecting onto a wall or a sheet, but this screen is going to provide us with a nice professional standardized surface for testing. I set up 2 projectors side by side with 50-inch screens, and I used the Dolby Atmos test footage at 1080p to judge their brightness and picture quality. For each matchup, I picked the best of the 2 projectors, which stayed on for the next round, and then I repeated the process over and over until only the best projector remained. If 2 projectors were really close in performance, I also switched their locations to make sure that one side of the screen wasn't performing better than the other. Round 1 wasn't much of a fight, with the C-Best projector having significantly greater brightness and overpowering the Goody projector, which was barely watchable even in a dim room. Round 2 was even less eventful with the wildly underperforming Mirror Portable Pico. Of all the projectors that I tested, the Mirror is the only one that I would consider to be complete e-waste. And I can't think of a single worthwhile use case for it because it's so dim and it's so low resolution. Round 3 was a lot more of a close fight, and although the C-Best was brighter than the Waygol projector, one thing that had really been bothering me in the previous rounds was how poorly the C-Best handled text in the test video. You can see that as the text zooms in, there are all kinds of jagged edges and choppy transitions, probably due to the C-Best's low native resolution. It's also worth noting that the C-Best Amazon listing says it has an SD card slot, but it definitely doesn't. The Waygol wasn't perfect, but the overall picture quality was good enough to edge out a victory over the C-Best even with lower brightness. In round 4, the Waygol went up against the Goody Wi-Fi mini projector, and even though I thought they both looked pretty good, the Goody had slightly higher brightness and slightly higher resolution. It did take me one additional test, and I switched the projector's positions in the rematch, but ultimately the Goody ended up winning this round. Round 5 put the Goody Wi-Fi mini projector up against the highest resolution projector so far, the Weemius, which was also the one that claimed to be native 1080p in the title, but actually only has 1280 by 800 native resolution. For me though, it wasn't the resolution that stuck out. It was the contrast of the Weemius that made the biggest difference. And although you can see that the Goody was brighter than the Weemius in some scenes, it accomplished that at the expense of being totally blown out compared to the crisp contrast of the Weemius projector. In round 6, the Weemius went up against the VamVo movie projector, which was definitely one of the most unique images of any of the projectors. The LED light source of the VamVo must be a cool white LED, because although the whites looked nice and bright, they also had a noticeable blue tint to them, which didn't look bad, but it definitely wasn't the color intended in the Atmos test video. Even though I could clearly tell that the colors were off, it still took me a rematch and my wife's added opinion to make the final call, but in the end, the Weemius took this one. Round 7 was good versus evil. The Weemius projector, which was by far the most deceptive Amazon listing, went up against the VideoChar's projector, which in addition to being the only native 1080p projector that I was able to find under $100, it was also the only one to use real ANSI lumens for its brightness, which it rated at 100 ANSI lumens. But unfortunately, when you do the conversion, that only translates to about 2500 light source lumens, which was pretty apparent. This clearly isn't a Disney movie because evil did triumph over good when the brightness and contrast of the Weemius projector were just too much for the VideoChars. And even though I was hoping for a different result, the Weemius pretty clearly won this round. In round 8, the Weemius took on a projector that I've seen in a few YouTube videos, the Yabber V3. On paper, the Yabber and the Weemius have very similar stats, and that came through in the testing. However, this was an easy round for me to judge because something was wrong with the Yabber V3 and it had serious issues blending between different levels of brightness. And a few of the scenes looked especially bad with really noticeable bands instead of a gradient. I played with the settings on the Yabber V3 to try to fix this issue, but everything I tried either made the rest of the image significantly worse or caused even more brightness banding. So the last and final round has the Weemius projector up against a projector that didn't have any name brand listed in the Amazon title. But when it arrived, it seemed to be made by a company called Vixen. And I swear I didn't plan this for the last round, but the Vixen projector is an absolute powerhouse, especially considering it was one of the cheapest projectors that I bought. With the Vixen on the right side, the competition felt pretty close, but I still felt like it had a slight advantage. However, when I switched sides and put the Vixen on the left for the rematch, it clearly had better color, better contrast, and better clarity. Even though the Vixen only claims to have a 3800:1 contrast ratio, it had a noticeably better contrast than the Weemius, which claimed an absurd 7000:1 contrast ratio, which goes along with the rest of the questionable claims made on the Weemius's Amazon listing. I also heard that the Weemius's dad could beat up your dad. Anyways, after 9 rounds and some additional head-to-head testing to battle it out for spots other than first, these were the final rankings, which is honestly not great news. I was hoping to find a simple metric that could be used to compare the different projectors without actually buying them. But when I sort them by rank, no one stat pops out as being especially important. However, it does seem like if you take all the stats combined, you can make a pretty decent prediction about the performance of a projector. That means when you're searching through Amazon listings, you'll need to find the native resolution, which I usually found by searching in the questions section of the listing. You need to find the brightness, which is probably going to be listed in light source lumens, so you can convert to ANSI lumens by multiplying by 0.04 or dividing by 0.04 to convert between ANSI and light source lumens. And last, see if you can find the contrast ratio, which ended up being one of the best predictors of performance, except of course for the Vixen, which had really great contrast despite its low contrast listing. Still, in general, higher contrast ratios seem to correspond with better performance. Out of these 10 specific projectors, my favorite was definitely the #1 ranking Vixen projector, which was not only inexpensive, high performing, but also includes a pretty impressive feature set. It can play video from USB drives, SD cards, through its HDMI port, through traditional RCA inputs, and it can do screen mirroring with iPhone and Android wirelessly, or on iOS you can do wired screen mirroring. It's worth noting that with all the screen mirroring options, apps with copyright protection like Netflix and Disney Plus won't work, so you'll have to use the HDMI port with a streaming stick instead for those services. I found that realistically, the Vixen projector can produce about an 80-inch screen in a moderately dim room and provide a pretty good viewing experience. The Vixen is also my recommendation for projected window decorations as long as the projector is going to be inside. For outside, where I'll be projecting some faces onto pumpkins, I'll be using the #5 ranked video charge projector, because unlike most of the other projectors in the test, it uses a 12-volt power adapter instead of having the power circuit inside the projector. This is important to me because I feel much more comfortable running 12 volts out to the projector than 120 volts AC. And even though none of these projectors are waterproof, 12-volt power is a lot less dangerous than 120 volts when water is nearby. The video charge doesn't have mirroring like the Vixen, but it can play from an SD card, which is all you really need for decorations. As I said, links to all the projectors that I tested are down in the description. And if you have additional questions, make sure to leave a comment and I'll answer it as best as I can. Thank you so much to my awesome patrons over at Patreon for your continued support of my channel. And if you're interested in supporting my channel, please check out the links down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching The Hookup.